This summer, during the biggest sporting event of the year, Peacock turns to two broadcasting legends for the Olympics coverage you can't find anywhere else.
I think they mean us.
With an incredible duo sure to take home the comedy gold. Olympic Highlights with Kevin Hart and Kenan Thompson. New episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Only on Peacock.
This is The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Now, here's Frank Morano.
Well, this is a big weekend in terms of the presidential race. Obviously, on Thursday evening, the Republican convention wrapped up. President Trump accepted the Republican nomination for the third time, becoming only the second person in history, other than Richard Nixon, to accept the Republican nomination for president three times. And as far as I could tell, his speech, it had a lot of great moments, but it was way too long. I mean, I follow on Twitter what people are saying during the speech, and the sense that I got, and I think Barry Weiss from the Free Press even tweeted this, that before that speech started, or maybe in the first 25 minutes, everyone was saying, wow, this guy's unbeatable. He's unbeatable. To at the end of the speech saying, all right, if we can have any Democrat that can read a teleprompter, they all of a sudden can beat him. So I thought it was an okay speech. Obviously, look, someone wrote to me that they weren't going to be too tough a critic on him because he was just shot a couple of days ago. And that's true. And I don't want to judge him that way. But I didn't think, I thought it was way too long. I think it could have been an hour shorter. I thought there were some flares of the dramatic. I thought the theatrics were a nice touch, but I thought it was just a far too long speech. It also, I thought, was not as focused as a lot of his other speeches have been. A little rambling at times. It was almost more like a rally, the kind of the remarks that he gives at a Trump rally, rather than what you'd hear at a presidential nominating speech. But ultimately, I don't think it makes much of a difference. I think all of his supporters are still for him. And everyone that was not going to be for him is not going to be for him. I don't think the speech makes much of a difference one way or another. I will tell you, the person who I thought stole the show was the immortal Hulk Hogan. I am a big fan of pro wrestling and of classic pro wrestling. And when I saw this morning, when I woke up, or yesterday morning, that Hulk Hogan was going to be one of the speakers, there were a lot of other speakers that I was interested in hearing, Tucker Carlson and some others. But when I saw that, I arranged my whole day around finding out what time Hulk Hogan was going to speak and making sure I was in a position to watch his remarks. And by the way, there was a lot of wrestling at this convention. Linda McMahon spoke at the convention, who obviously is the wife of former WWE owner Vince McMahon, and she's been an on-air character in the world of pro wrestling herself, and she's been a behind-the-scenes influence in pro wrestling herself. And the Kane, a WWE Hall of Famer, he didn't speak, but he was one of the most sought-after guests at this convention. My colleague Dominic Carter had him on his show. And he was somebody that I saw people rushing to take selfies with. A lot of wrestling at this convention, which I like, because the more wrestling, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But I know people may laugh at the fact that Hulk Hogan was included in this because, hey, he's just a wrestler. But I think including people like Hulk Hogan and Amber Rose and folks that are from different walks of life, hip hop, politics, religion, pro wrestling, UFC, it really does show that you're making an effort to reach out to people that don't typically watch Fox News and MSNBC all day. You're reaching out beyond the little political box, the box of political junkies of folks that listen to talk radio and watch cable news all day long. Because it's those clips, the clips of the rappers and the evangelical leaders and the wrestlers that are going to be replayed and shared on social media 100 times and help Trump, who already has a lot of name recognition outside of politics, help him resonate even more in certain communities. So I think strategically it's pretty smart. But even if it wasn't smart, I, as a wrestling fan, especially as a wrestling fan during the 80s and 90s when Hulk Hogan had his heyday, I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was surprised that they would pick Hulk Hogan, because Hogan is not necessarily considered terribly political. Ric Flair, on the other hand, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the greatest world wrestling champion ever, I think I would not have been surprised to see him, because Flair is a Republican. He's campaigned for a lot of Republicans over the years, Republicans like Jesse Helms and Mike Huckabee. Hogan really has never done that, whereas other wrestlers have been political before, like Bob Backlund and Jesse Ventura. I have never seen Hulk Hogan participate in politics in any real way, except when he was kind of pretending to run for president back in 1999 and 2000. And I will tell you, so I had a lot of expectations for this. And it's interesting because Hogan and Trump have a relationship that goes back many years. WrestleMania 4, which was a great WrestleMania, and people remember it these days as being the WrestleMania where the Macho Man Randy Savage won his first world championship. WrestleMania 4 actually took place at Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. And at the Edis Arena, which is still there, even though the Trump Taj Mahal is not still there. And you had Trump at the event with his family, and he was frequently referenced by the announcers and by the wrestlers, including by Hulk Hogan in his promo. This is a promo that Hogan cut at WrestleMania 4. Now, just understand, this is Hulk Hogan at the height of his popularity. He is just... and in the greatest shape of his life, monstrous biceps, looks like not even a human being. He looks like a comic book character. This was less than a year after he had body slammed Andre the Giant in front of 93,173 people at the Pontiac Silverdome. And now he was in Atlantic City trying to win that world championship again. And here's the promo that he cut at WrestleMania 4.
And as Andre the Giant falls into the ocean, as my next two opponents fall to the ocean floor and I pin them, so will Donald Trump and all the Hulkamaniacs. But as Donald Trump hangs onto the top of the Trump Plaza with his family under his other arm, as they sink to the bottom of the sea, thank God Donald Trump's a Hulkamaniac. He'll know enough to let go of his materialistic possessions, hang on to the wife and kids, dog paddle with his life all the way to safety. But Donald, if something happens, you run out of gas, and all those little Hulkamaniacs run out of gas, just hang on to the largest back in the world, and I'll dog paddle us, backstroke all of us to safety.
Oh, and thank you, Hulk Hogan. Let's get back to action. Wow.
Unreal, Donald Trump, one of the Hulkamaniacs.
There he is right there, a Hulkamaniac. You really think so?
Absolutely.
That's Jesse Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon, the announcers there. So Hogan cut his promo, and then they cut to Trump with his wife, Ivana. And then you have Gorilla Monsoon saying, there's Donald Trump. And then Jesse Ventura, who plays in the role of a heel announcer. And he actually was friendly with Donald Trump in those days. As you've heard from my interviews with Jesse Ventura in the last couple of years, he is not a fan of Donald Trump at all anymore. But he says, there he is, a Hulkamaniac. You really think so? And Gorilla says, absolutely. You know, I misspoke a second ago. I said the event, WrestleMania 4, was at the Trump Taj Mahal. It was actually at the Trump Plaza. Actually, they claimed it was at the Trump Plaza. It wasn't even really at the Trump Plaza. It was at the Atlantic City Convention Hall. But they billed it as being from Trump Plaza, which was across the street. It's now Boardwalk Hall, they call it, or Jim Whalen Boardwalk Hall. So, as far as Hogan's speech goes, he comes out to his theme song that we play frequently on the show, Real American by Rick Derringer. And he talks about all sorts of things, how great an American Donald Trump is, his history with Trump, and why people should elect him again.
You know something? I've seen some great tag teams in my time. Hulk Hogan and, ooh yeah, the Macho Man Randy Savage. But you know something? I see the greatest tag team of my life standing upon us, getting ready to straighten this country out for all the real Americans.
He ripped his shirt off and had a Trump, I think it was a Trump Vance shirt underneath his outer shirt.
You know, we never had it better than the Trump years. Back then, we had a thriving economy. We had strong borders. We had safe streets. We had peace and respect around the world. But then we lost it all in a blink of an eye. Crime is out of control. The border is out of control. The price of food and gas and housing is out of control. And the only person who can clean this up is Donald Trump.
One of the things he did before his remarks is he did a whole bunch of those old Hulk Hogan poses where he holds his ear up to the crowd as an indication that they should make more noise. And he did all the sort of poses that he used to do back when he would win a match and be in his ring. He was really fired up. He was vintage Hulk Hogan, both in terms of his speaking ability and in terms of his magnetism beyond speaking as well.
You know, even though you guys are real Americans, you better get ready. Because when Donald J. Trump becomes the president of the United States, all the real Americans are going to be nicknamed Trumpites. Because all the Trumpites are going to be running wild for 4 years. So with the power of Donald J. Trump and all the Trumpites running wild, America is going to get back on track. And like Donald J. Trump said, America is going to be great again.
And this is how the Hulkster ended his remarks before the convention.
You know, when I look out and I see all the real Americans, I think about how Donald Trump, his family was compromised. When I look out there and I see Donald Trump, I think about how his business was compromised. But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
I'll tell you, the guy was on fire. Now, if you actually analyze any of the specific policies, you know what's amazing at the convention yesterday, and really, I haven't watched every minute of the convention, but at the convention yesterday and almost all 4 nights of the convention, that's the most public policy we heard was from Hulk Hogan. Now, we did hear a little from J.D. Vance, too, and from Sean O'Brien. But you notice, you know, all of the people that spoke in prime time, they didn't necessarily speak, all right, we're going to do this on taxes, we're going to do this on trade, we're going to do this on the national debt. They spoke just basically about how great Donald Trump is, and that's fine, right? I mean, this is what he wants in his convention, that kind of thing. But Hogan actually did at least allude to some policies, but you can't delve too deeply into the policies that Hogan is talking about, because if you start asking questions, then I'm not sure that he has all the right answers. But I will tell you, I thought that speech, honestly, was a home run. Not to mix sports metaphors, I thought he hit it out of the park. I thought Hulk Hogan fired up that crowd, and he brought an element of crossover appeal that I think is going to serve Trump well with people that don't typically tune into politics, honestly. And I'm not just saying it because I like Hulk Hogan. And by the way, I'm not a Hulk Hogan groupie. I'm a Ric Flair guy. But I thought he hit it out of the park. That speech was what Clint Eastwood's speech in 2012 should have been. You remember when they had Clint Eastwood speak at the Republican convention in 2012 and nobody understood what he was talking about? He was talking to an empty chair. And then people didn't understand if that he was supposed to be acting out a scene with Obama or with someone else. And then he's having an imaginary conversation. I mean, I thought it was so cool to have Clint Eastwood there. I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan. And it's great to have any kind of an icon there. But if you have to struggle to understand what the icon is actually trying to say, then it doesn't work. That speech last night was easy to understand. He hit on all the themes that Trump wants as far as political theatrics goes. Hogan's speech last night, 5-star, a winner, an absolute winner. And you know what the best part about it is? It was short. It was short. It wasn't 2 hours. But somebody just reached out to me on Twitter saying, I sound like Anthony Weiner. I'm suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. No, the speech wasn't too long. Get some meds for your Trump derangement syndrome. I voted for Trump, right? Twice. And I contributed to Trump. I was for Trump in the year 2000 before any of you were. So don't tell me I'm suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. But you know what I'm not? I'm not devoid of objectivity. I can tell you if a speech is too long. And you know what? In prime time, the speech is too long if it goes 2 hours. If speeches are ending around midnight, it's too long. It's too long. Now, the real story about the presidential race that could potentially have longer term ramifications is the fact that it looks like this could be the weekend that President Biden finally calls it quits. I will tell you what we know. I'll give you my take on that. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. I'll give you the latest straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping into the future. I wanna fly like an eagle to the sea.
The Steve Miller Band singing Fly Like an Eagle. If you ever want to know what kind of bumper music we're playing on this show, just join our Facebook group. Just go on Facebook and search Morano, Morano, Radio, Fans and Haters. That's Morano, Radio, Fans and Haters. We post the songs there each and every morning after the show. And this was a birthday bumper music selection by Mike Sombluskis, who was celebrating his birthday today. All right, the big news being reported by Mark Halperin of the Wide World of News newsletter, who I've, in case on the off chance that he's up, I've texted and encouraged him to call in because he was really the first person to break this story. He is reporting that multiple sources outline the apparent state of play with respect to President Biden at this time. And apparently the plans are to announce a withdrawal from the nomination as early as this weekend, with Sunday most likely. John Meacham, the presidential historian who also has been a Biden speechwriter from time to time, is apparently polishing up the remarks. President Biden will not resign the presidency. President Biden, this is all Mark Halperin's reporting, will not endorse Kamala Harris. There will be an open convention with Harris and about 3 others. Superdelegates will not be allowed to vote on the first ballot. And Harris is vetting at least 4 possible running mates, including Andy Beshear and possibly Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. That's what he's reporting. What's being talked about in Clinton world is basically something similar, is, that kind of thing. Charles Gasparino from Fox News is reporting that an announcement that he's not running could come as soon as today. Robert Costa of CBS News is saying that John Meacham is disputing this report. He spoke to Robert Costa via text and said the report about my doing anything with the speech is totally false. And this comes as Meacham is being talked about by some Democrats as a Biden confidant who might be working on an exit the race speech for President Biden. Biden is in Delaware. He's isolating from because of COVID. And they're disputing this totally. And apparently they don't like that all these donors and all these politicians are trying to tell Biden what to do. I think it's clear, the same thing I said the night of the debate. It's clear President Biden is not going to be the Democratic nominee. He is not going to continue in this race. And honestly, he shouldn't. And it should make everybody happy. President Biden is clearly not able, I don't think he's able to do the job as president, but he's clearly not able to be a presidential candidate. And no one should want him to run. I mean, if you're a Democrat, that's obvious. Most Democrats, at least 2/3, don't want him to run. But if you're a Democrat, you absolutely don't want him to run because he's the weakest possible candidate in the country right now for the Democrats. If you're a Republican, I don't think you want Biden to run either, because if Trump beats Biden, that's what so far everybody's predicting. Even John King of CNN says at this point, it looks like Trump would win 330 electoral votes if he runs against Biden. If he runs against Biden, it's almost like running, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all, it's almost like running against an invalid. It's like running against a half a candidate. And that means Trump's win over Biden is always going to have an asterisk to it. They're going to treat him as if he beat nobody. And I think it's going to be very difficult for him to have any sort of a mandate. And I think in history, it's going to be regarded as, of course, that's the only reason Trump ran. He won against Biden. But wherever you are, even if you're not crazy about President Biden, Democrat, Republican, or independent, nobody should want this to come to pass. Nobody should want Biden to be the candidate. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. Nobody should want Biden to be the candidate because what we should all want is the strongest Republican candidate possible and the strongest Democratic candidate possible and the strongest third-party candidates possible. What we should want as voters is not the best of the worst. We should want the best of the best. And I don't think anybody would say that Biden is the best of the best right now. Nobody. Right. So I think you want, and sometimes people would say, oh, if you're for Robert Kennedy, or why would you ever want a stronger Democrat there? Because the Democrat has a good chance of winning. And I want the best Democratic candidate possible, the best Republican candidate possible, and the best independent candidates possible. So I think the whole country has a vested interest in trying to have someone other than Biden be the candidate because, Biden is not able to govern this country. So you don't really know who you're voting for. You're voting for an administration. Who's making the picks about who runs everything? Who's making policy? So nobody should want Biden to run, most of all his family. It's embarrassing, honestly. You're at the point where whether you love Biden or you don't, you see Biden give a speech, and it's almost like when I speak with someone who's clearly afflicted with something or very elderly or infirm somehow, when I see Biden speak, and this is even before the debate, this was the case, I would hold my breath hoping that he wouldn't make a mistake, hoping that he wouldn't embarrass himself, because nobody wants to lose their dignity. And Biden is losing his dignity with every public appearance. But he's doing it on a national stage. I know the conventional wisdom in some parts of the conservative media is that Kamala Harris is not a strong candidate. And by the way, if you want to comment on this, you can. 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. I think there are other Democrats that are much stronger candidates than Kamala Harris. Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado. I think Sheldon Whitehouse, the senator from Rhode Island. I think, you go down the list. Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. I think there are a lot of candidates that are better suited to appeal to Andy Beshear from Kentucky. I think there are a lot of candidates that are better suited to run for the presidency and do well. Amy Klobuchar, certainly from Minnesota. But I think that Harris is not nearly as bad of a candidate as people think. Honestly, I think what the Democrats need if they're going to win is somebody that can put together the Obama coalition again and have outsized black turnout. And Trump has been making serious inroads, according to every poll, among black voters. The most recent New York Times Siena poll shows him at about 30% of the vote when it comes to black voters. You know what it was 4 years ago? At this time, he was at about 5% of black voters. Let's say those numbers are inflated a little bit. And this is all before the assassination attempt. Even if those numbers are inflated a little bit, still doing a lot better with black voters. So if you're just tuning in, I am Frank Morano. You're listening to The Other Side of Midnight, 646-720-0635. I think Harris is one of the candidates that could do the best job in getting a lot of those black voters to go back to the Democratic column. And it's true, Harris is not a perfect candidate, not by any means. I think the biggest mark on her record is the border, because she was the border czar. But beyond that, she's in a position to take credit for all of the successes of the Biden administration, or the perceived successes. This is not my view of saying these are successes, but a lot of people view these as successes. The CHIPS Act, standing by Ukraine, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. And I think because she's a woman, she's in a real unique position to make a lot of the election about abortion, which is not an issue the Republicans win on. And I think the fact that she was a former prosecutor, and she's going to frame it as a former prosecutor running against a convicted felon, I think it makes her better suited than a lot of other candidates to run on the crime issue. And look, unlike Biden, she's not burdened with people thinking that she has dementia. Unlike Biden, she's not burdened with people thinking that she's in the bag trying to do favors for Hunter Biden. So again, I wouldn't vote for Harris, but I think she's a much stronger candidate than a lot of the right-wing media would care to admit. So Republicans' biggest mistake here is being overconfident. I've said that since the debate. When I saw that debate and I said what a disaster, when I saw what a disaster that was for President Biden, I said what you've witnessed is the single worst night of the campaign for President Trump, because there's no way they can keep there's no way they can keep Biden on the ballot after that. Done. He's done. And now they're going to put someone that can actually complete a full sentence and looks like they know where they are. Anyone will be a better candidate than Biden. I don't think Harris is as weak a candidate as people think. And you put in people like Josh Shapiro or others, this race could get very interesting. And it looks like it's kind of be their own version of The Apprentice going on. It is very interesting that Dean Phillips tried to warn the Democrats about this. Dean Phillips said Biden is not fit to run. I appreciate what he's done. He's got a great record, but he's not fit to run. Please, what he said publicly on national television, he said, please, anybody run. Gavin Newsom, please run. Gretchen Whitmer, please run. I'll support you. And none of them came forward. And then ultimately, he said, all right, well, if no one else is going to run, I'm going to come forward and run. And he did. And you know what? Biden wouldn't debate him once. If there was one debate, I think Democratic primary voters would have seen that Biden was not up for this job. And they would have tried to have another candidate at that point. But Biden refused to debate. And Phillips's own colleagues in the House treated him like a pariah, like he's some sort of a traitor, when in actuality, Phillips just wanted what was best for the Democratic Party and for the country, which was not to have a president that was cognitively impaired. And yet, I think Phillips has been vindicated, totally. But this party that keeps talking about democracy, democracy's on the ballot, democracy's on the ballot. They're about to choose their nominee through the least democratic means that we've seen. It's going to be a closed door process, a convention, kind of a mini primary where the voters don't get any say. The millions of people that voted for Biden over Williamson and Phillips, their votes essentially are canceled out so some political insiders can make the decision. So, I mean, that's fine. I know a lot of political bosses over the years that have always preferred being the people choosing candidates instead of voters. But I don't want to hear anything about democracy at all anymore, because this is the least democratic thing you can do. And okay, it's fine. Maybe you think this is the best thing for the country, but don't say democracy's on the ballot, because you had democracy. You had a chance to showcase democracy with your own party, and you chose not to, in spite of the fact that there was every opportunity. So that's my 2 cents. We'll see where we are on Monday. My suspicion is that there will be an announcement between now and then that President Biden is no longer running. We'll see. 646-720-0635. If you want to comment, 646-720-0635. I do want to comment as well on the passing of Lou Dobbs, who is an incredible broadcaster and an icon in the world of cable news and radio broadcasting. So we'll get into that in a bit. But first, let me say hello to Paul in Paramus. Hi, Paul.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to disagree a little bit about the Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock paradigm there.
Sure.
Trump's problem is he doesn't have enough women voters. He's got the male vote by quite a lot. But you're putting on all male energy there, and maybe you like Hulk Hogan and you find that interesting. I don't. I find it puerile. I know some people like it. Hulkamania. He's talking to people like people know what that is. Most people don't. And then you have Kid Rock with the growling. And also Eric Trump came on. Very, very boring. He has a horrible speaking voice. And Trump went on for too long, and it was the middle of the night, and everybody was asleep. I thought.
Well, I agree. I agree on that point. I mean, look, I think the long speech was a disaster. Honestly, I mean, I think any speech that's ending at midnight is. I mean, that's not a good speech.
Also, another thing I'll point out: everybody's saying the same thing. Trump's the strongest man of all time. He is. It is amazing what he's done, but 15, 20 people saying the same thing.
Agreed.
Please.
Yeah, very repetitive. Yeah. Look, you may be proven right. I mean, I think there were a lot of female speakers that tried to make the case that that he is a champion of women. I think, though, Trump is kind of trying to reach, and I think this is what Hulk Hogan was all about. I think it was what Dana White is all about. I think this is what Tucker Carlson has been about to some extent. I think this is what some of his media strategy has been about to some extent. He's trying to reach the young, not necessarily conservative or liberal male audience that watches Joe Rogan, that watches David Portnoy, and he's trying to reach that group. And I think, Trump does have a problem with younger folks right now among Generation Z. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is leading. So I think part of that is trying to reach out to Generation Z. You may be proven right on the woman aspect of it, Paul. I certainly think you're right about it being too long of a speech. And I would agree with you as well on, even though I'm kind of friendly with Eric Trump, I would agree with you as well. He shouldn't have been given the role that he was.
He does not possess a good speaking voice.
Yeah,
at all.
I agree. I thought it was kind of flat, and it's not as if there was a shortage of speakers. Thank you, Paul. For instance, I would have loved to hear the person I would have loved to hear was Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard, I think, is supporting Trump. I know she's not supporting Biden. And if they asked her to speak at this convention, she absolutely would have. 100% would have. So I thought that was a miss, not having her speak. And I think she would have done a good job potentially doing outreach to women and others. So that's it. All right. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. We'll chat a little bit about Lou Dobbs straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
All I Need Is a Miracle. This is a birthday bumper music selection from my friend Mike Zumbluskis, who I'm told is actually in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention and is actually kind enough to call in and give us an update. Mike, happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for playing the music I requested.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I didn't even realize you were in Milwaukee. How's it going over there?
It was pretty good. I mean, I probably forgot to tell you that I'm running for Congress again. I got over my stroke was pretty well, so I was here smoozing. But one of the things I thought was not funny, but unique about the convention, a lot of the speakers grew up poor, went into the military, and now a bunch of them are in Congress. You're talking Donaldson, you're talking Wesley Hunt, you're talking J.D. Vance, there's so many of them. There's so many rags to, not riches, but rags to success stories. And I think that if anybody took anything from the convention, they should have taken that.
Well, I think that's an interesting observation. Were you on the floor during President Trump's speech last night?
I wasn't on the floor, but I was up in the nosebleed seats.
Gotcha. But no, you were in the arena as it was happening.
Yes.
What was your impression, honestly and objectively? And I know since you're running for Congress, maybe you're going to give me a political answer, but you have a pretty good track record of being forthright. What did you think of Trump's speech?
Well, I thought it was more subdued than his normal speeches. He was more introspective, I thought. He wasn't, most of his normal speeches, he goes crazy on some issues.
Right.
But he was keeping a calm voice, steady voice. Now, I don't know if that was by design or because he was shot on Saturday. And he has a little bit more introspective on it. But I think it came across well. And I think the Democrats are going to have and the media are going to have a hard time saying, this is a crazy man, looking at that speech.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My impression was that it was an hour too long. Did it feel long true. Being there?
No, actually it didn't. In the arena, it did not feel long at all. I think part of it, too, why it was longer than it felt like, it was because the crowd just went wild at certain parts, and, he had to stop speaking because they were screaming Trump, Trump, fight, fight, or whatever they were screaming, And so he had to let them, have their fun.
One of the things that I've been saying is that, and I've been saying this since the debate, is that at this point, any Democratic candidate is a stronger candidate than Biden. I asked Brian Kilmeade that same question 24 hours ago. He basically agreed. What do you think?
Yes and no. It all depends on who the candidate, and can the Democrats raise the money in time to actually get that person's name out there. Because, outside a few of these candidates, they're not well known nationally. They might be known regionally, but they're not known nationally. And if they don't have the financings to get his name out there, and it's going to be a truncated race. So they're going to have to pick somebody that is very charismatic. If they're not that charismatic, then there's going to be a problem. Kamala will have an easier time because I think she can take over a lot of
right. That's what they say.
Money.
She gets to keep the money.
Right. So, and she's already been vice president, so her name recognition is higher. So that's the problem the Democrats have. And the other thing is, if it is such a contentious convention, it could be almost like the 2001 Democratic race, where Green pissed off Fernando Ferrer, and they didn't come together in time, and so that's how Bloomberg was able to slip in.
Yeah, I tend to think with such a small group making the selection here, it's not like they're appealing to the masses, that you're unlikely to see that. I don't think you might see some negative stories planted among reporters and things of that nature. I don't think you're going to see things like negative ads and negative campaign literature, the kind of thing that engenders hard feelings. But who knows? We'll see.
Right. So the thing is, it's maybe deals that were said and then they got broken on the floor, because that's what I was saying, because somebody said, okay, before they go into convention, this is who I'm going to vote for. That, like, this block of delegates said they were going to vote this way, and all of a sudden at the last minute they switch.
Yeah. That's
where the hard feelings, I think, could come in.
Mike, real quick, I know you're from, you're a New Yorker now, you're from Pennsylvania originally. What was your take on the shooting on Saturday? A lot of people over the last week that we've been on air have been pointing out the failings of the Secret Service and of law enforcement. And I know you're a military veteran yourself as well. And, I spoke with Colonel Douglas McGregor yesterday. I've spoken with other people, and it seems like, and I do think it was not a conspiracy, and I'm on record saying that, but it seems like that there was so much going wrong here that it invites conjecture that maybe this was some sort of a broader conspiracy. Where do you come down on this, Mike?
I don't think it was conspiracy. There's not enough information to even jump that far. However, it was a unbelievably bad failure. There is no way that somebody should not have been on that roof. Because anybody with any skills can make that shot, and he almost did. Because in the Army, you were trained to shoot out to 300 meters, and that was basically half the distance. and you get your marksman's badge, and almost any soldier that was trained could have made that shot. And so there's no way that roof should have been left unguarded.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. Now, Mike, are you running against Gerald Nadler this year?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Well, good luck. And your website, I think, is electmikez.com, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, best of luck to you. If anybody wants to check you out, they can absolutely do so there. Thanks, Mike. Happy birthday. You have any plans today other than flying back home?
Well, actually, I'm driving back home.
Oh, you're driving back?
I drove out here with a couple of my volunteers.
Oh, great. So were you impressed with Milwaukee as a city? How'd they do hosting this convention?
I thought they did well. It's the only thing I didn't like was we couldn't find anything to eat at tonight because all the kitchens were closed.
I am shocked. You're kidding. Well, why would I would think that all the restaurants would be staying open late, given the masses of people that were all going to be looking for something to eat after Trump's speech.
Yeah. I was shocked too. There was only one place that was opened after we got out, and it was just so packed. We were standing there 20 minutes, and they didn't even recognize us to eat, so we just went back to the hotel.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Mike, but I'm glad you had fun. All right, drive safely back. Make sure you listen to the right radio stations. We're on a lot of stations between here and Milwaukee, so just keep spanning the dial. You'll find us. If we're not on 720, we're on 770. If we're not on 770, we're on 680. If we're not on 680, we're on a number of others. So if you start losing us on whatever station you're listening to, and obviously you can always just listen on the app or through the internet. Mike, thank you. Happy birthday. I'll see you soon.
And thank you for your birthday wish.
Sure thing. Absolutely. Great guy. Mike Zimbuskis, a good friend for many years. 646-720-0635. If you want to comment, 646-720-0635. Lou is in New Jersey. Hi, Lou.
Hey, Frank, what's happening, man? Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Listen, I really want Biden to run because I want Trump to beat him. And the only people that are going to vote for Biden are people that hate Trump. There's no Biden supporters. I really think that I want Trump to run against him and beat him.
Yeah, I recognize that, right? But I think what you just described, meaning there was nobody for Biden, everybody was against Trump. I think that was the case 4 years ago also. And ultimately, while it's certainly not looking good for Biden now, I don't think you would want somebody like that even having a shot at winning. And I mean, would you really want someone like that who's clearly not able to do the job? And when I say not able to do the job, I don't mean like they're going to make decisions you don't agree with. I don't think he necessarily even knows what's going on. Would you want to risk having that person get elected?
I just don't see it happening. I see Trump beating him so bad, like a landslide, and that's really what I want. I want a landslide.
All right. Well, look, I think the best thing for the country is to have the best possible candidates across the board, right? And clearly that's not Biden. So I would always say this to politicians on a local level that wanted no opponents. They wanted to be cross-endorsed, or if they weren't cross-endorsed by both parties, they wanted the other party not to run someone. And I would say, really? You don't even want the voters to choose? They would say, no, I want to win. That's kind of the vibe that I get from people that are saying they want Biden to stay in at this point. Do you really want to win like this? I don't think you would. I wouldn't. 646-720-0635. Miles is in Manhattan, an old friend of mine. Hey, Miles.
Good morning, Frank. I'm going to change a little my question if I can. I'm going to make it easier with the other one for next Friday. I would just love to get few steps through that rabbit hole forward. And the question comes after like two short sentences. Let's assume that the assassination would be successful, and I agree with you that it's not coming from Biden. Probably the same people who want to get out of the way Trump wants to get out of the way Biden, and if it would be successful, of course, the hit on Biden would be blamed on some MAGA extremist. Do you think that the fact that Biden is now hiding in his beach house and...
Yeah, Miles, I'm not sure your question or if you even finished your question, but I wish all the presidential candidates the best of health. I want them to all do well. Keep asking questions.